welcome. This is Brian Hemmer with The Inevitable You, joined by my great friend Dan Jimenez, and here to follow up on our discussion last week on demystifying the law of attraction with more of more practical tips, I guess, practical tools on how we can really apply all of this, and really looking at, I hesitate to say improve manifestation abilities, because the reality is we're already amazing master manifestors. We're all doing it. I mean, it's not that you can't apply it. The law of attraction is always at work, right? And so if you just look at your life, the way that your life is today, what you've created, health, not health, money, not money, love, not love, that's all a manifestation of your co-creation, as we talked about last time, your co-creation with the universe. I mean, it's a product of what you think about, what you focus on, what you emotionalize, and the actions you take or don't take. Really, that's it. When you boil it all down, the results of your life are a product of those things occurring. So I want to look at how can we, I guess the better way to phrase it would be, how can we apply it in more efficient or effective ways to get more of the things that we want and less of the things that we don't want. So does that all sound good, Dan? Is it anything you'd add?
Well, no, just just being more conscious about how we are creating and who we're being.
Yes.
All of those things, that are thoughts, our words, our actions, our emotions, right? It's who we're being.
Yes.
And a lot of times we think we're conscious about who we're being, or we're active in our choosing of it. And, a lot of times we actually aren't. And it's more by default, and kind of those old programs, like, you like to talk about, the old software is what's by default choosing your way of being. And in that, you get the outward manifestations in your life that match who you're being.
Yes. Absolutely. Love the word. I actually wrote that down as a keyword here, getting conscious about how we're doing it versus unconscious. And that's a good segue. That's really where I wanted to start, is approaching this from a place of, again, how do we become more conscious of this? It's really starts with thought mastery. So again, if we look at that process of what we think about, what we emotionalize, leading to the actions we take and we don't take, if we get really conscious on the thoughts that are occurring, and to Dan's point, some of those we're aware of, we're conscious of the thoughts that are occurring, and majority of it is subconscious or even unconscious. We're not aware. We're going through our day, we're trying to manage the demands of life. We're trying to create more. We're dealing with adversity and challenges, and there's always thoughts occurring. And for the most part, we go into like a default mode, right? So where how we react to things is going to be, for the most part, going to occur from that subconscious place. So to give you an example of this, I think we might have touched on this last time, but a conscious thought pattern would be like the don't spill the milk example. So when a parent tells a child when they go to pour their first glass of milk, don't spill, that's a conscious command. It's a conscious program. You can process that. It's okay. I could, it knock the glass over. It could overflow. I could trip and fall. You're consciously processing a command versus on a subconscious level, something that your parents said to you back in those critical 5 years of life, when your personality or your neural patterns are being wired in, could be affecting how you behave to this day. And so we have a great example of, and Dan, I don't know if you've remember this one, or if we ever covered this one in previous discussions or not, but there was a client who came to us, and he was coming out of professional sports and going into a new arena to try to create a career. It was in financial services or something like that. And he was really struggling, and he couldn't really understand why. He had very successful, career in sports, and now all of a sudden he's struggling, he's seeing adversity. And we asked the question, what's the one sentence, if you could boil down your one command or what your parents told you as to how to create success? And he's like, oh, that's easy, my dad said it all the time. Doesn't matter how strong or fast you are, it matters how hard you work. Sounds like a good saying, right? You
I'm
remember the
Yeah,
punchline to this one?
yeah. Basically, if you're saying it doesn't matter how strong and fast you are, you're implying there's an embedded command there that you are not strong and fast. So then, therefore, uh,
Yes.
what was the second half of it?
Yeah, no, it's
How
so
hard to play, or
embedded command, to your point, embedded in that sentence, right? It's subconscious, it's not very apparent. Who would you tell what kid would you say doesn't matter how strong or fast you are? Would you
right?
say that to a strong or fast kid?
No, you say it to
No.
the slow and weak kid,
Yeah. And so who was most likely the slow and weak one?
right? The son.
The father, because that was his, right? The
Mhm.
client's father. He's like, oh yeah, my dad said it all the time. Doesn't matter how strong and fast you are, it matters how hard you work. So that was how the dad created success. He was not strong and fast and he worked hard. But for the son now, again, going into a new arena, running that command, that program, which again, embedded in it is you're slow and weak, so you better work hard. And he's busy working hard, but believing he's slow and weak. And
Mhm.
if he was a professional athlete, do you think he was slow and weak?
Right.
No. So an example of how what we're currently creating can lead back to things that even our parents told us on how to create success, handle adversity, reach our goals. That is not very apparent. It's not in our conscious mind. It's running in the background. So is that making sense? Is the way I just want to make sure that the way I
Yeah.
explained it was making sense.
No, no,
Sometimes I
no.
get tied
Yeah.
up in that example.
No, I would just say the one thing that I can see, and this is one of those, you'd probably have to go back in the history of this, but like even the father telling that sentence to the son, right, doesn't necessarily mean that he so this is where I kind of get tripped up, right?
Yeah,
Because
yeah.
so as someone who's a parent, I have three children and two of them play soccer right now. They're of age to start playing,
Cool.
and I am constantly like being conscious of what I'm saying to them, right? Almost overly conscious, and I kind of
Uh,
go this loop in my head, and I start, going down a rabbit hole of things like, oh, don't say this because then this means they're gonna feel this way, right? And I understand if we're talking about people who are in an unconscious place and saying that statement, I guess where I get tripped up is like I would say that to my son if he was weak and slow. So
sure. Yeah. It's not a bad command,
yeah.
right?
Well, no. I'm just trying to. Again, I'm getting tripped up over the like at what level the son. So is the son thinking he's weak and slow by hearing that, even though he's seeing the evidence that he's not?
No. So in the moment when he was a kid and he received the command, or it doesn't matter how strong and fast you are, it matters how hard you work. Is he thinking he's slow and weak? That's a good question. I never really thought about it
Right,
that
right, right.
way. uh,
And maybe not in childhood because in the moment you see it one way and then later on you see it differently, but it doesn't mean it doesn't affect you from childhood. Like to give another example that might clear it up,
yeah.
like if you know you were home alone all the time as a child because your
Mhm.
mom, single mother, working two jobs, right? But you remember being alone all the time. Then as an adult, you understand, oh, she was doing everything she could to put food on the table for me. So now as an adult, you are very conscious and aware of why that happened. You still have the scarring, you still have the neural pathway, you still have the feeling of abandonment from your childhood.
Yeah, yeah. That's a good example. It could be that what that message was or the meaning around it was mom doesn't care about me,
Yeah.
for example. And now there's all these subconscious things going on around relationship with women, for example, right? Kind of what you're getting at.
Well, I mean, just in general, the feeling of abandonment, right? Like as a
Yeah.
core wound. But
Uh-huh.
my the point I'm actually trying to tie to this is the fact that what you perceive as a child doesn't necessarily relate to what you perceive as an adult. And just
Sure.
because you do perceive it differently as an adult doesn't mean that the damage wasn't done early on. Now, to relate it to this whole
Yeah,
weak,
yeah,
not weak thing, it could be the opposite. So, same principle, but opposite reaction. When he was a kid, doesn't matter how strong and weak or strong and fast you are. It matters how hard you work.
yeah.
It's focused on work hard, right?
Exactly. Yeah.
But then as an adult, rethinking about those now in this situation where he is not, you know,
He
the
is slow
strong.
and weak. Yeah.
He's slow and weak in this new arena.
Yeah.
Um, Maybe it's hitting on a subconscious level in that regard. Of,
Exactly. That's exactly it. And then I'll give you another kind of main tool we use. And this one's a little more complex and we won't go too in depth with it. And I know I've talked with you about it before, Dan, but the concept of the rogue program, which is basically there's neural links, there's neural connections associated to the thing that you're saying you want. Sometimes it isn't really what you want because subconsciously maybe it's um it'll bring more if I have more success, I'll have more problems. If I have this love, I'll have my heart broken. If I um get this a classic example we use is if I lose all this weight, now I've wired in, let's say I've wired into my mind, I have this imagination of when I lose the weight, then I'm going to have all these amazing things. I'm going to ask that person out on a date. I'm going to quit this job. I'm going to have all these amazing things happen when I lose the weight. Let's say you do. It happens. You get on a great diet plan, you go exercise, you lose the weight, and then you have this moment where you're like, oh shit, I've got to do all these amazing things now. I've got to take these actions. And that's where we see people sabotage. So when you look at self-sabotage, it's usually as a result of these subconscious programs that are occurring or these rogue programs we're not really aware of. Rogue meaning it's floating around there somewhere, kind of like a virus in a computer, right? Corrupted line of code waiting to sabotage things when it starts to happen.
yeah, it's funny you bring it up because I was actually thinking of that exact thing this morning, the whole rogue program concept. And yeah, I run data scrubs of my system, my internal operating system.
Uh-huh.
And, I am trying to find like where are my hangups? I look at you know, speaking of law of attraction, right? I look at my life and the manifestations that are happening and are in my life.
Mm-hmm.
And I try to reverse engineer them. Okay, well, this is what I'm experiencing. What thought process is keeping me experiencing the same thing I've been experiencing that I'm looking to not experience anymore? And for instance, with this, weight was part of it. Uh, Two parts of the equation. So the sentence that was told to me, I remember it vividly. I think it was in like seventh or eighth grade, and maybe sixth grade. And one of my friends said to me, "You're too fat to skate. Fat kids can't skate." Right? And I
Mm.
just remember being like, "No, fuck you. Like I've been
Yeah, what
skating
an
for,
asshole.
like." But then also seeing my results is like I wasn't as good of a skater as some of the other kids, and I wasn't like horrifically overweight by any means. Now, but he was a super skinny kid, like complete, like you could see his rib cage and everything.
Mm.
Um, but I mean, it's stuck with me for a really long time. And so now when I'm thinking about, I'm out in Hawaii now, I'm getting back into surfing, I'm getting into skating again. I'm, skating with my son and daughter. And, you know, that doesn't, I'm not thinking about that constantly, but I do think about like, oh man, okay, I'm about 15 pounds heavier than I want to be. Well, let me lose the weight and then I could be better at skating, right?
Mm.
But then also, I do think I'm like, well, why am I having trouble losing this 15 pounds? Even though I have been in the fitness and nutrition like industry for the last 10 years and understand very practically how this stuff works and have helped many, many people do this thing. Like, why right now am I having trouble with this like 15 pounds? Like, what is the stuckness around it? And like, what's the rogue program is what I was thinking about this morning. And that's kind of what came up because I'm getting into all these like action sports again, and I'm starting to gain momentum in them. And I'm wondering at what level is which one affecting which, right? Is
Mhm.
my is my keeping my weight at this, am I waiting to get good at the surfing and the skating and then the weight comes off? Or am I, like
Yeah.
there's something about this, and I know it's this is one of probably many sentences, but this one in particular, because it keeps coming up randomly, like not thinking about it, not it'll pop up in my head every 6 months or so.
Huh.
So, maybe you can
Yeah.
help me unpack that.
Yeah. It could be. And here's the thing, like it could be connected to multitude of different things, right? Like that could just be one flavor of it, of where it manifests, right? Keyword here, like it, it could be that, yeah, once if I do lose this 15 pounds, well, then I better be a good skater. And shit, well, I mean, there's things connected to that too. Like I mean, you're gonna have to practice it. You're gonna have to like I mean, I don't think you think, or do you, when you lose the 15 pounds,
No,
it's like, boom, I'm an amazing skateboarder,
no,
or is
I
it?
know. But I'm seeing the series of self-sabotage,
Yeah,
right?
yeah,
Like I go practice for a day or two, and then I'm like, that's not really that important. Let me go do something else, right? Like the
yeah,
next day comes up, I was supposed to stick to this, diet plan. Like, is it really that big of a deal? Like I see the sabotage happening,
yeah,
I see it, I see how it plays out. I see the excuses come up, especially the old excuses that I've always had. Well, I don't have the right board for this, or I don't have the right shoes, or I don't have the right the waves
right.
aren't right now for surfing. Like, and there's some truth to that, but I do see where I'm using it as an excuse and as a
Yeah.
sabotaging moment versus not.
It would be interesting to see, and unless you already have an idea of what's leading what, is the skateboarding leading
Yeah, yeah,
is the
that's what I'm
weight,
trying to figure out.
you know what I'm saying? Uh,
Mhm.
it could be because I mean, what it feels like to me is that those last 15 pounds, and I'm sure a lot of people can relate to it, are the hardest, right? Like it's easier to knock off 50 if you're severely overweight versus those last 10 or whatever. And it requires a certain kind of commitment, right? It requires certain sacrifices, if you will. And so it could old software, old you could be like could use the skateboarding thing as almost part of the excuse around not having to really commit to those to that, let's say, greatest version of health plan, if that's
Right.
making sense. That's kind of what it feels like to me. At least I know that programmer. I know that very well because I struggle with that too. The last, like, why can't I just? It's right. I'm right there. Why,
Yeah.
So
But to actually bring this even closer to what you wanted to talk about,
yeah.
who I'm being, what my emotions are around this, what I'm vibrating, the frequency I'm emitting from who I am is getting me this result of stuckness or not,
Mm,
past. So like I know last time we talked more about the thoughts, and even just this first 10 minutes
Yeah.
we've dove into, well, what's the program, what's the thought? But the reality is like the thought's creating the emotion inside, right?
Yes.
So I don't I don't know, chicken or the egg type thing of like, does it really even matter if we know, what the thought is if we fix the emotion behind it? And I know sometimes it's like where Tony Robbins will talk about like the pushing the plate away when
Mm,
he was 37 pounds heavier than he was before, and he was trying to lose the weight, and he'd get his plate in front of him and he'd be halfway done or three-quarters of the way done with it, and he'd like push it away and get like really excited about it and like emotionalize, like, yeah, woo, I'm
right.
pushing
Right.
the plate away.
Yeah. Yeah.
Not like you better finish everything on your plate because that was the program running.
Right.
But really, if that was the program running, the feeling and emotion was guilt of, I have to finish this, it's a waste if I don't, there's starving kids in Africa,
Right.
like. And so
Or it's so good. I don't really want to sacrifice. It's so tasty. And what if I don't want to miss out on this? And I'm hungry. And yeah.
spent all the money on this and all the things, like, I'm just going to throw it in the trash. So once again, like the thought, as fun as and exciting it is for us to try to figure out, I just love those complex puzzles.
Yeah.
Really, it's that emotion behind it, and from that, the NLP side of things. Well, what's the emotion that you want to rewire, right? What's the new program? What's the new, you
Right.
know, and it's the, push the plate away, get really excited about it.
Right. Right.
Now
Yeah.
you're not feeling the anxiousness. You're just like, oh, my plate's three-quarters of the way full. All right, I'm excited.
Yeah.
And then how we put that into our, skateboarding or losing of the weight, or whatever it is.
Sure. Yeah. Yeah. No, it's an excellent point. It is where I was going to lead next because these two go hand in hand, right? Like we touched on last time, the thoughts lead to the emotions lead to the thoughts. So it's this cycle that occurs, and it can cycle downwards, it can cycle upwards, right? There's this momentum that occurs. And, the classic example we use for this is like, do you run an I have a dream speech around your health, for example, that it's like, I have a dream, I love working out, I'm moving with flexibility and I have a dream. Like you have the excitement and the good feeling around your health and making those choices, eating the great foods, getting to the gym and celebrating, versus I have a nightmare, right? I can't do this, is so hard, and I can't make this sacrifice. I just want a donut right now. I don't want to eat a salad. Like I can have one donut, right? Can I? It's not that bad. Right. So these speeches that occur in our head that's connected to different emotions, excitement versus, fear, or hope versus doubt, or whatever, that's so critical to this process of manifestation that we're talking about, because it's in pairing those two that leads to the inspired action, as we touched on last time, and keeps that consistent, dedication to it, versus I get a little excited and then I'm back to, and then I get discouraged and then I'm back to old ways. And then I, get a little hopeful and then I'm back in my rut. And so, getting conscious again about the habitual thought pattern, that speech, and then the emotion that's connected to it. Because sometimes the thought is not producing a good emotion. Like you can think the right thought all day, but really the magic happens, or like it,
Yes.
if you're not in alignment with that thought, then it's kind of a moot point.
The classic example, to go, to
Yeah.
touch on the money, because people
Yeah.
like that. I'm a millionaire, right? Like the whole fake it till you make it. The problem occurs is the fact that the feeling doesn't match the thought, right? Oh man, I'm a millionaire. Oh, I'm so rich. Oh, I have all this money, right? Like that's a thought that you have and you're putting out there. But in reality, like every time you say it, you're like, no, I'm not. Like, I'm a liar. Like, that doesn't feel,
Right,
well, I don't have it yet. Like, my reality is different.
right,
And that's, I think that's where conscious thought, step one, right? If you're saying I'm poor, I'm a loser, I'm never going to make money, like, well, that is going to be a reality, especially because the feeling behind it matches probably pretty damn closely to the thought.
right. Doesn't
Step
feel good.
one, yeah,
Yeah,
step one, we're changing our thought, we're changing our language. But if your feeling is still, it's the feeling of lack. It's like, I want to be a millionaire because I don't feel that way, because I don't have it. And that's why I'm really, like, just not feeling.
right.
And the
Yeah,
feeling is what produces the outcome.
right. And yeah, we touched on that last time about like if what you're saying, you can have the target set, you can have the hope, the dream, the goal set, and that can be exciting. But if it's producing that feeling, because you're comparing that to where you are and it's producing that feeling of lack, well, then it's counterintuitive. It's working against you. And so again, bringing conscious awareness, more consciousness into this process, and these are important distinctions that we're now covering in this from last time. um, there was one point I wanted to make about your question around, does it matter if we identify the thought or not?
Hmm.
No, I mean, yeah, you can just play new and emotionalize the new and do that. And at the same time, sometimes there are those subconscious thoughts that are derailing us, that you're like, what the hell? I don't get it. I don't know. I did everything wrong, man. I was thinking about it, I was emotionalizing, I was doing great. What the hell happened? And so there is value to do that introspection and figure out, or look at what is the old software, what's the old thoughts around this, what could be that subconscious programming that's occurring. And that's where journaling is a great tool, writing the thoughts out, working through this, working with a coach to help you. Sometimes you need someone to point out a blind spot because you just can't see it. So just to kind of close that loop on the subconscious programming.
Yeah, yeah, no, I appreciate that.
So yeah, to emotional mastery now. So we're practicing thought mastery. We're going into emotional mastery. Good thoughts lead to good feelings, vice versa, right? You're creating that great cycle. Um, I also wanted to look at this from the perspective of energy management, right? So like the thoughts and the emotions, that requires energy. And um, I'm actually stealing this a little bit from my good friend Walter. We have some great discussions on some of the previous shows here on this podcast, if you're interested in learning more. But he loves to talk about it in terms of energy management. So like if you think again that we're these bundles of energy, we're interacting with a energetic universe. Everything is energy. So if you look at this in terms of like a input output kind of process, right? You're taking energy in from somewhere, you're gaining energy, and that can be self created, right? You create excitement, maybe you practice meditation, or you get energy from working out, or you're ingesting good foods. You're taking energy in and then you're putting it out into the world through, well, they require some form of energy. Your brain actually is the number one user or expender of energy, which is crazy if you think about it. And then your body's producing hormones, your body's producing these neuropeptides, these things floating through your bloodstream that we call emotions. That all creates energy. So now you are vibrating at a certain frequency based on that. Each thought has its own frequency. Each little particle of each emotion has its own frequency. How that's reverberating through your environment, it's got to have some kind of impact, wouldn't you think?
Sure. Yeah.
So, as we talked last time, if you walk into a room and you're all pissed off, well, people can probably feel that, right? If you walk in and you're excited, you're energized, you're happy, people will feel that, and that's going to produce entirely different interactions. So, again, just to highlight another way how the thoughts and the emotions are really, critical to this process. And when you think about it as actually having an effect on the environment, and now how you go throughout your day, if it's an input output, if you're putting energy towards the person that cut you off in traffic and fuck you, or you're putting energy towards someone that pissed you off at work, and you're putting energy towards having an argument with your spouse, or you're putting energy towards how I don't know, I'm throwing different examples of maybe ways that are not beneficial to what you really want to put energy towards, right? Where energy goes, attention flows, energy goes, right? Like if you're putting your energy and thoughts literally towards things that are not what you want, well, you're not going to have energy left. You're going to be depleted. You're not going to have enough left to put towards or dedicate towards those things.
Yeah. And also, you put it towards that, which is saying, hey, I want more of this, right? Like, this is the experience I want in my life because this is where my focus is. It's really on a very simple level. Walking through, so living in Hawaii, right? Paradise. It's beautiful. There's birds chirping, blue ocean, gorgeous green mountains. And it's really easy to be walking down the street and seeing dog crap that owners didn't pick up, and trash blowing around, and
Mhm.
broken down cars like junked in the side, like they just toss them because there's nowhere to throw them. They park them, they burn them, and they just leave them there. And it's super easy to focus on, man, this place is a dump, right? Like no one takes care of the land, no one cares, there's pollution everywhere. People aren't picking up after their pets. Like no one gives a crap about this. Man, place is a shithole.
Yeah.
Very easy to look at that.
Mm-hmm.
But then you can zoom out, like literally just pick your head up 2 feet from the ground to like eye level, and you see in the horizon these crashing waves and palm trees blowing, and you're like, wow, this place is gorgeous.
Yeah.
So it's like, but where I'm giving my attention is what my experience is, right? Like I give all my attention to this garbage that's around, and all of the problems and issues. Well, I see more problems than issues, I experience more problems than issues.
Mm-hmm.
you know on that law of attraction level, I'm attracting problems and issues into my experience.
Mm-hmm.
Set it in our reticular activating system. Hey, what's important to me is problems and issues, right?
Great.
Versus I pick my head up 2 inches, 2 feet, right? Like, and I just look at eye level, or I look to the sky, and now I'm focused on, man, this place is beautiful. And then in that moment, you see a rainbow pop up, and in that moment, this like beautiful, bird flies by, and it's just like, wow, this is amazing. I see so many beautiful things in my life, right?
Yeah.
Now you're putting your focus and attention and energy there, and the universe reacts and saying like, oh, you want to see more of this? All right, here you go. Here's more of this. Just kind of another way to.
Yeah. I love that.
Um,
Being more conscious about where you're directing your attention and energy. Yeah. Now, there's one important caveat that just came to mind as you're talking through that. Like, I don't want this to come across as just ignoring the shit, just ignoring the bad things and just sticking your head in the sand and this is not that either, right? Like there's on one hand, it's just directing your attention in different ways, right? And we get that. And then on the other hand, it's okay, well, then what do I do with the problems? What do I do? Do I just ignore? No. And this goes into a popular um, tool that we've used for years called the formula. I think you probably remember this, right? Like it's the example of, let's say I spend an hour in the morning. Okay, I'm gonna get in state. All right, money. Okay, money's coming. I'm dedicating thoughts and decent emotion towards more money. Now, by the way, my emotional intensity on a scale of 1 to 10, if I'm just, what would you say it is?
Probably 0.5.
Not very high, right?
Yeah.
Now I get to work feeling good, had a good drive in. All right, manifesting money here. Here we go. Okay. All right. Oh my God, I can't believe this. Phoenix screwed up my order. This is terrible. What the hell happened? Oh my God, the boss is going to be so pissed at me. This is how quickly we flip, right? And that could be an unconscious moment, right? Something that triggers us. Emotional intensity just skyrocketed on the negative side of the scale, right? And now I'm focused on a problem and that how it's going to ruin my day. And then I'm going to spend 3 hours trying to fix it. I'm going to go to lunch with my coworker and complain about it for 2 hours. I'm going to, come back. Maybe I've cooled down a little bit, but still pretty pissed off. My day just went, I started my day off right. And so how
Yeah.
quickly we tip the scales in the other way, right?
Yeah, and the thoughts that come along with that aren't just about the thing, right? Like in your case, Phoenix screwed up your order at work, and now you have to do all this extra work to, unfuck it. It goes to this point of like, see, nothing ever works out for me. I always have to work really hard. Nothing ever goes my way, right? Like, it's all these underlying thoughts that are intertwined in that.
Right.
It's not just like, hey, this guy messed up my order and it's just on him, right? Like
Right.
I have nothing to do with it. I'm fine. Like it's all of the things come up, all of the that ties directly to like, see, I'm not worthy, or I'm not,
Yeah.
capable of being in a place of ease or enjoyment. Because,
Right.
or yep, just when I'm happy, like the other shoe drops. You have all of these, little.
See, I knew this law of attraction crap didn't work. I spent an hour meditating on
Right,
money,
right,
and
right, right.
and then what? The universe screws me.
Right, totally, 100%.
Yeah. So it can open up other subconscious loops, subconscious programs. But here's the thing: instead of, again, you could redirect your focus, or if I just reframed the problem and I said, just from a very dissociated state, say, wow, oh, wow, oh, that's not good. Oh man, that's unfortunate. Okay, all right, well, I'm gonna have to figure this out. Might take a couple hours, but it's gonna be okay. Now I've switched the emotional. I've changed the emotional intensity. Right, it's still not a positive feel good, but I've diminished it pretty intensely, right? And now maybe I make a choice to not go to lunch with Dan and complain about how my morning just got screwed up so badly, right? That's one option. Or I could be like, oh my God, this is amazing. They screwed up my order. I'm gonna be the hero. I'm gonna save the day. Boss is gonna love me. Customers are gonna love me. If that's real, and again, and this is not about blowing smoke or fake it, make it. It's a positive reframe. I just tipped the emotional scales completely the other way. So the whole point of that is you can take something that is bad or negative, a problem, and reframe it. You can reframe anything, and you can direct your emotions. You can choose to associate to better feeling emotions, or you can dissociate yourself from the more negative side of the emotional spectrum. And that's a combination of thought mastery and emotional mastery. If you can figure that equation out, if you can do that, we have a whole bunch of tools to teach people how to do that. That's really how it works. I mean, that's how you can start to, again, tip the scales in your favor.
And one thing to note is like this is a practice, right? It's not a, oh cool, now you've learned this and you'll never experience the opposite of it again. It's like in fact you'll probably start experiencing it a lot and you'll see it even more often to give you chances to practice. You know,
Right.
life is giving you these scenarios of like, oh, okay, I thought I was strong in this scenario that really is pushing my edge of being okay with this. Like I don't even know how to reframe it. One of
Right.
the things you mentioned was along the lines of the term like toxic positivity or
Mhm.
spiritual bypassing, where you just
Yeah.
kind of, nope, you're looking in a Pollyannic view of like, nope, everything's fine, it's going to be okay, and
Right.
not addressing problems. There is a difference between stepping over something and, uh, actually reframing it.
Right.
The reframing is like acknowledging what happened for what happened, right? Like this order that I spent hours putting in at work was messed up by Phoenix, right?
Right.
Okay. Like I acknowledge that I put a lot of work in and it got screwed up, right? Like that sucks. And from this place of like, that's what happened. I can't do anything about it. This is like the ending of suffering, which I know is a completely different. They're all related topics, but suffering is wanting something to be different than the way it was. And
Mhm.
so when you have that emotion still in, like, oh, I wish they didn't screw it up. I wish they didn't. You know what? Okay, I get a chance to be the hero, but man, they really ruined my day. Like, that's where the whole bypassing comes in. It's like you're not acknowledging that you were hurt by the thing that happened and that it was an inconvenience.
Right.
You know, it doesn't mean sitting and wallowing in it, because now you're emotionalizing the negative,
Yeah.
right? But it's like, man, okay, what happened happened. Now I'm in the present moment. I can't change the past. I can't change how it happened or what happened. I wish it was different, but it can't be. So I'm at peace with it. And now in this moment, I'm choosing to look at this from a different perspective. I'm looking to, you know, oh man, this could be, shoot, if I handle this and become the hero, like this could be a promotion, this could be a bonus, this could be like
Yeah.
I'm the go-to guy now for these types of things. Like
Yeah.
it completely changes it. But when it doesn't work, or I wouldn't say it doesn't work, but anytime you can unemotionalize a bad, or like take the charge or energy out of something negative,
Yeah.
if it is just like, I guess I get to play the hero,
Right. Right.
that is better than like the emotional charge of the negative.
Sure.
And also, let's not stay there and just live a ho hum life of, okay, I guess just got to do this now.
Yeah.
Yeah. Get to a place where you can actually believe, because when you believe it, that's when the actual feeling and emotion changes and matches with the thought.
Correct. Yeah. Yeah. And that's kind of a you know, silly example, I guess, or something like an everyday example. And you could probably even think of something that happened today like that. But to your point earlier, it's challenging. Like this is an art. It's not easy
Ah,
See, is that my subconscious?
is that?
But if you're, I mean, there really is like a learning curve, I guess is the way to put it, that like, and it's a spectrum. It is hard when something really does not go your way and it really is a catastrophe. Yeah, it sucks having your leg broken in the moment. It's painful. It hurts. And if you can begin to switch the thought process or change how you think about it, this is, you know, I'm going to come back stronger. I'm going to learn from this. I'm going to grow from this. You can start to emotionalize those sorts of things. Again, that's, an art that will serve you well in this whole process of manifestation versus staying stuck in an old, disempowered and negative state that's not going to be very beneficial for, again, your vibrational state, we'll put it.
Yeah, which that vibrational state dictates your reality. It dictates what's around you, what manifests in front of you, and that's. Do you think it's a good idea to practice? Right?
Absolutely. Yeah.
Just like breathing, just like exercise, right?
Yeah.
Like people think fitness, and I would put this in the same category as fitness, is like, oh, I'm just gonna do this for 6 weeks. I'll have abs, and then and then what? And then you'll be done, and then you go
Yeah.
back to living the way your life was before. It's like,
Yeah.
no, it doesn't work that way, right? Like fitness is a lifestyle. It's a long-term practice.
Yeah.
Yoga practice. Like it's a constant thing. Even doctors have practices, right? Like
Yeah.
all the
Yeah.
practice. So I work in a chiropractic practice. Like there's all these different things because it's an acknowledgement of you keep doing this until you die.
Right. Right. Yeah. You build the muscle so then you can continue to use it more effectively, efficiently, or you can do 10 pull-ups versus one pull-up now. Like you can do more. You
And it's
open
easy.
up possibilities, right?
It opens up possibilities, and you are going to get stronger at it, and it's going to get easier. And I would say I've been consciously practicing this stuff for about 5 years, unconsciously for probably like 10 to 15. I've always been more of a positive person in general, but I didn't really look at it from a standpoint of of that. Um, and man, I get hit all the time with these things where I'm like, whew, I know all the things I'm supposed to do. I truly believe that there will be good outcomes. And seeing the reality that's in front of me, the what is right now, it's hard to look at and say something different than I'm seeing. So, like,
Mhm.
for example, hey, how's your day going? I want to tell you it's going well because it is going well, except there's this one email I got today that really irritated me and it has potential to like unravel and be a phoenix screwed up my order
Right.
thing like
Right.
pretty intensely. And I know that that situation is going to work itself out and be okay. And it's still very hard for me to tell you that my day is good because there's this one little thing that's potentially not good in there. So,
Right.
things that I struggle with.
Yeah. You mean you're human? Crazy.
I've been told. Yeah.
uh, to your point again, it's funny how these keep linking up with each other. This is one of the last points I wanted to make. If you want a pretty easy, quick way to go about changing your state, your health. Because, hey, it's kind of hard to feel good emotionally and think good thoughts when you feel like shit. When if you're sick or you're not at an optimal form in terms of your health, if you don't physically feel great, then it's just going to make it a little bit harder. So something you I'm sure can speak a whole lot to as far as the benefit with by just focusing on your health, you can maximize the application of all these things that we're talking about here.
Yeah, dude. I mean, if you even look at like Maslow's hierarchy of needs, right, and you're looking at like food, water, shelter, those basic things. Well, if you don't have water, it's really tough to think about anything else other than I need water, right? I would say, and I'm not too big a student of all of the teachings in that arena, but a modern day version of Maslow's hierarchy of needs, it's like for people in America who don't have the problems of clean drinking water or and shelter and place to live and those types of things. You can see it as money is a huge one for sure. Health is really big.
Mm-hmm.
People feel crappy all day long. They're tired, so then they need caffeine to wake themselves up, and then they need Ambien to go to sleep. And they're in this cycle of like their body's so dysregulated that they're not able to survive. So they're like, I just need the next hit of energy. Okay, now I need rest. Oh, I need the next hit of energy. Oh, my back hurts. Take some,
Right.
ibuprofen. I have this pain, I have that pain, I have digestive issues, right? Like
Yeah,
it's all of these things that are health related that if you don't have those in order somewhat, right? Doesn't mean you have to be 100% perfectly healthy before you move on, but it's taking up a lot of that energy like you're talking about, right?
yeah,
You're thinking about it, you're focused on it, you're caught in this cycle. So what kind of energy do you have left to put towards the things that you want to do?
exactly. Exactly. Yeah. I'm sure everyone here can relate to getting sick and like just not feeling like doing anything. You just want to lay in bed. So if you're not feeling good and you can't physically take inspired action or don't want to take inspired action because you feel like shit, then it's going to affect, you know, if you're looking at this as the series of events, right? A series of actions and they're all leading towards the things that we really want, then it would be wise to put yourself in a better position to be able to do that versus not. So your body's the vehicle, man. It's the tool. It's the thing that's producing all those great feelings, and it's the thing that's going to move you about your environment to go take those actions, get those things. So take care of it.
Yeah, for sure.
Well, that's all I had, man. I think we'll kind of end it there. As always, appreciate it. Some great stuff in here.
Yeah,
Again,
thanks for having me. Till
cool.
next time.
Sounds good. Appreciate you. Appreciate everyone for listening. And yeah, take care. Have an awesome day.